Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Carp. It is Wednesday. It is a snowy Wednesday, February 19th, 2025, and it is episode 121. And I'm excited. Now, we got a lot of it's a different setting behind me. It's going to be a shorter episode tonight, but reason being, I'm in the process of moving. My amazing girlfriend and I, we have been moving the past few days, so it's been a little crazy, but we still wanted to provide you with the best show that we could possibly do. And I wanted to first off, I want to say you can find Roundabout Sports on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Cast, anywhere else. And be sure to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Interstate 70 Sports Media. We're on Facebook. We're on X. Roundabout Sports has its own Facebook page. Also, check out our other amazing shows on Interstate 70 Sports Media. Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles. The Other Guys Sports Podcast. And yes, that is the name of the show. And as well, on top of all of that, the Blues Fan Forum Podcast, the official blues podcast of Interstate 70 Sports Media. With all that said, the first thing I want to talk about this evening is Major League Baseball. Now, for those that don't know, Major League Baseball announced today or yesterday that they're going to test automated ball strike challenge system during the spring training games. Now, way back since 1864, umpires have been calling balls and strikes. And ever since then, they've been arguing about the calls. Well, now, as technology has become increasingly capable of accurately testing out whether something is a strike or a ball, the need to replace the human error has become more apparent. And that is where we're at right now. That being said, during the grapefruit and cactus seasons this spring, the ABS, presented by T-Mobile, as they would like to say, will be in place for roughly 60% of spring training games. And MLB executive Morgan Sword and the vice president of baseball operations said, "This is a pretty big decision for the game of baseball, quote, that we want to get everybody to weigh in on." So you might be wondering, how does the ABS challenge system work? Why is it more preferable to something such as robot umpires? So let me just show you, okay? For those that are tuning in onto the live stream audio visual podcast version of the show. So basically, let's go over this. It's a compromise between the full ABS, which is all balls and strikes being called by a computer, and the traditional way with umpires, with a sprinkle of some strategy. Now, in the ABS challenge system, the human home plate umpire will call balls and strikes. But this thing called Hawkeye technology is running in the background, monitoring the exact location of the pitch relative to the batter's strike zone. Now, this gives players the ability to ask for a challenge of a ball or strike call that they feel the umpire got wrong. Now, Hawkeye's provided the core data for ball player and bat tracking for the StatCasts since 2019. Now, how many challenges does each team get? Well, 2 will be the starting number for everybody, I should say. So we're going to start out with 2 challenges each, see how that pans out. And the batter, pitcher, or catcher can challenge an umpire's call. Not even the manager can do so. Now, that's the interesting thing because, managers have been really trying to monitor and make their own calls on things. Now, how's the call reviewed? The Hawkeye view is then shown to those in attendance via the video board, and to the home viewers on the broadcast. Okay, fair enough. Now, one of the big things, and especially that Rob Manfred, everyone's favorite commissioner, has tried to do is lower or lessen the amount of game time. So, brings up the question, how much game time will this add? Apparently, a challenge added 17 seconds of game time on average. Now, are successful challenges retained? Yes, a team only loses its challenge if the umpire's call is confirmed. No, there is no extra challenges and extra innings. And my dad, who has commented, says no, he is not a fan of this, and I want everybody's thoughts on this. And like I said, this is a very interesting development on things. Now, what is the goal of all of this? It's to determine whether ABS in its current form is suitable for the major leagues, because it's going to be continued to be used in the minors during this upcoming season. So, yeah, we definitely have that. Now, of the 23 spring training ballparks that there are, 13 have this Hawkeye technology. And I would say one of them is Roger Dean Stadium, home of the Cardinals and Marlins for spring training, and Surprise Stadium, which is home to the Rangers and the Kansas City Royals. So both Missouri baseball teams will be experimenting with this during spring training. Now, this is another interesting thing. Excuse me. A lot of people are wondering, couldn't teams just use the broadcasted strike zone to help them identify pitches to challenge? Now, they're going to... MLB has long had an issue with that because obviously that's not something you're allowed to base things off of. And Rob Manfred has discussed that that's something they're going to delve into deeper as spring training goes on. Now, the Diamondbacks have been announced as the team that will end up playing the most games with the ABS challenge system. So, like I said, 29 games that the Arizona Diamondbacks will be using the ABS system in. So I wanted to throw that out there to really kick things off, so we can see how this all pans out. I want to shift gears now to a little bit more of some Cardinals news. As we're getting closer, like I said, pitchers and catchers are reporting in spring training. It's interesting because right now, we're looking at, and bear with me a second. So, Nolan Arenado is still on the Cardinals. With that, they still a lot of these experts out there are doing their power rankings through the St. Louis Cardinals. Jim Bowden of The Athletic did his power rankings of all 30 NFL teams or MLB teams. Nope, football season's over, folks. Of the 30 teams, the Cardinals are ranked 25th. He gave them a grade of F and called them one of the offseason's biggest losers. The only teams that are worse than the Cardinals in this ranking are the Athletics, Angels, Rockies, Marlins, and White Sox. Yes, the Cardinals are just a few spots ahead of the team that lost 121 games last season. Really put that back in perspective. So, now this is you may wonder why they are ranked in this way. And first off, I want to go back. Nick is tuned in. Thank you, Nick, from the Other Guy Sports podcast every other Sunday on Interstate 70 Sports Media. He says, and this goes back to the story of the umpires, not a fan of this robot umps idea, but if it cuts down the bad calls, don't we want that as fans? You want it, but you also don't want to take out the human element. At least I don't want the human element taken out of all of this. That's a big chunk of the fun of all this. I feel that with, and plus, like, you can go into the argument. I mean, one of my dear friends is an umpire, a lot of jobs right there. But there's part of the fun. You watch just old baseball highlights. Some of the most fun things are seeing managers go out there and just have a huge fit with umpires. That goes away if you put in robot umps or the ABS system and you take that human error. Yes, it sucks when a bad call is against your favorite team. Look, we've experienced that with the Cardinals forever. But there's the human element. It makes you passionate still. So that's frustrating. I personally find that a bit frustrating. To quickly go back to the Cardinal situation, he says that Jim Bowden says the team's slow rebuild. Now remember, let's go back to just a couple months ago. What did the Cardinals say they're going to do this offseason? They're going to get younger and they're going to rebuild. Okay, to do that, you have to do two things. Number one, you have to make moves. The Cardinals have not done that. They are the least active team this offseason. Okay, the only thing they have tried to do is trade Nolan Arenado, and they can't even do that right. The second thing that the Cardinals emphasized that they would do is with this rebuild, it's revamp the rotation. The rotation looks largely the same. And, they also said they were going to cut payroll. Well, they're 1-1 in arbitration cases. They won the Donovan case. They lost the Nootbaar case. But no, I'm looking at this team. And it's just amazing to me because the Cardinals have failed to accomplish their number one goal, which is trading Arenado. This past Sunday, he attended spring training. He reported to it. And he said he was in the right place, which is good. And yes, Bowden has been one of the biggest critics of the Cardinals this offseason and in recent years. And normally I don't like the straightforward hate the Cardinals get, but this is justified, I think, at this point. And Eddie Jameson always tuning in every week. Thank you, Eddie. And he says, quote, they're putting it on the shoulders of Chaim Bloom. That is true as well. I think they're personally, and I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But something just tells me the Cardinals are kind of just using this as a bridge season. They're like Mozeliak's last year. Okay, Bloom takes over the next year. Cardinals aren't really going to – I don't have high expectations for the Cardinals this year, which means if they do a lot better, great, they exceeded expectations. It also means the disappointment's still there if they do bad. I mean, keep in mind, the Cardinals did finish with a winning record this year, or this past season. And it's ironic because they did enough to last year. They did enough. Their 83-79 record was enough to win them the World Series back in 2006. But in 2024, not so much. They finished 10 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers, who ended up winning the division. And on top of that, they had the tiebreaker of above the Chicago Cubs because of the series, them winning the season series between the Cardinals and Cubs. So in technicality, the Cardinals were basically tied for second. And the Reds weren't too far behind, 77-85, and Pittsburgh was just one game behind them. So it's amazing to me that the Cardinals, for a team that are in such a tough division, that are in the situation they're in, are not even trying to make any moves. They're not trying one bit. And it is something that's severely going to hinder the team. And fans are going to, not show up. I think a lot. This is going to be a rough year, I feel like. I'm just going to say it right now, folks. I feel like this is going to be a rough year, Cardinal Nation. Eddie says the Cardinals he predict are going to be third place. I can see that. This is going to be an intense baseball season. But you know what's interesting? In another way, the Cardinals, they could surprise a lot of people. They really could. Our very own Andrew Heckroth feels the belief that the Cardinals could surprise many people this season. So, yeah, we'll see how all that goes. Moving on now on Roundabout Sports, episode 121, I want to talk about something. This is a big 180. I got to talk about NASCAR. I don't talk about NASCAR a lot on this show, and it's probably not going to, change much. But this is an interesting story that just came out. So Daytona 500 pole winner, Chase Briscoe was dealt a major fine on Wednesday when NASCAR said Joe Gibbs Racing had a modified spoiler on the number 19 car in the time trials. It says here that Joe Gibbs Racing was docked 100 driver/owner points and 10 playoff points. The spoiler base is a single source part that can't be modified, and during the inspection process, NASCAR discovered it. So, also, this is another interesting thing. Joe Gibbs Racing was fined $100,000, and the crew chief was suspended 4 races. So, Chase Briscoe goes now into Atlanta Motor Speedway with negative 67 points. He dropped from 10th to 39th in the standings. Now, Joe Gibbs Racing said they would appeal this ruling, but I do get kind of a kick that, damn, negative 67 points to head into a race. Yeah, not exactly the most ideal situation for Briscoe. But I digress. So, the Briscoe penalty marks a devastating start to his first season driving. Now, the earliest he can move into positive points is the 3rd race of the season at the Circuit of Americas. Meanwhile, there were other penalties. It says here, Front Row Motorsports team and Rick Ware Racing Team were penalized for safety violations. So, yeah. I just had to throw that interesting NASCAR story out there because it's not something we discuss on the show much. And, you know, there is still such a big following for it. So, once again, I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in so far on episode 121 of Roundabout Sports. I will say, it is, like I said, it's a different backdrop. A lot of things look different right now. I'm moving. I'm in the process of moving, my girlfriend and I. And so with that comes the fact that, well, damn, still trying to get things settled and situated. I want to go now to the other side of the state of Missouri because, look, I'm not going to talk about the Chiefs. Chiefs season, over. We'll worry about them later. Right now, though, I want to talk about an interesting player in the Royals organization, okay? I want to talk about this. So, Vinny Pasquantino is one of the more fan favorites. The thing of it is, he has had a lot of injuries, and he also has not done as well at the plate. He's a very, middle of the road hitter. That said, the Royals are predicted to have their number one prospect is predicted to take Pasquantino's place in just a couple seasons. That being Jacques Caglione. He is a 6'5", 21-year-old who started at the plate and on the mound at the University of Florida. The Royals used their first-round pick on him this past season. And Bleacher Report's Joel Reuter made a prediction on Wednesday that Pasquantino would keep the job for 2 more seasons, and then Caglianone will be the new first baseman in 2027. He said, quote, the dynamic two-way talent at the University of Florida, he hit .419 with 35 home runs last spring while posting a 4.76 ERA with 83 strikeouts in 73.2 innings on the mound. The Royals took him with the number 6 overall pick in the draft, and first base will be his once he's ready, with Pasquantino shifting to designated hitter. Now, he might come up in 2026 if you want my personal opinion. I don't even think he will. He'll probably begin the season in Double-A, because I don't even think he'll start in High A. I think he'll go all the way up to Double-A. Now he's not going to want to. I think the Royals are still going to be cautious because I don't think they want to rush putting him up there, having him flip-flop with Pasquantino, creating a whole situation. Because one thing we've learned, just watch the Cardinals with Jordan Walker, constantly calling somebody up, bringing somebody down, calling them up, bringing them down. Basically, it does not do you any favors. So, with that said, when will he come up? I'm gonna say 2027. He very well could come up next year, but no, I do think that 2027 is a fair enough year or fair enough time span for him to be called up. And both of these bats they're both lefties, so that's really crucial for the Royals' success. A lot more variety in their starting lineup. So I'm curious to see how things develop, and of course, we'll be keeping you covered as spring training gets underway in Kansas City as well. Now, Eddie, Okay. Like I said, shorter show tonight, so we're going to wrap. Before we wrap it up, do our finish. Eddie asks, thoughts on Mizzou and Alabama tonight? Okay, well, let me tell you, Eddie, first off, about the Mizzou men's basketball team. Holy hell, they are fun to watch. First off, here's my predictions. Right now, I got Missouri winning 86-81 over Alabama. Now, here's why. Look, over the last couple seasons, Alabama's won 4 straight. But this is a different Mizzou squad, okay? They have wins over, excuse me, Kansas when they were number 1. Number 4, Florida, who is now number 2. They are 16-1 at home this season. For Alabama, look, they're not in good traveling weather. Like I said at the beginning of this show, it's in single-digit degrees and it's snowing in Missouri. So, yeah, not the ideal traveling weather. I'm taking the home side on this. I'm going with Mizzou. I do think that, I will say that Missouri is not, the Tide lead the country in points per game with 90.3. Missouri is 19th at 82.6. And I do think both teams, if you want to be the gambler for a second, they both don't really hit the overs that often. I do think Missouri's defense is going to step up well tonight against Alabama. And look, Mizzou's won 2 straight. They just won 87-74 at Georgia. Anthony Robinson II and Caleb Grill each scored 15, and Mark added 14. The Tigers are 7-3 over the last 10. There are 3 losses, only at number 7 Texas A&M, at number 6 Tennessee, and at Texas. So it's not like they're losing to teams that are not competitive. So, Eddie, you asked me what I think. I think Mizzou is one of the most underappreciated basketball programs in the country right now. I think that they get into the big dance come next month. They're going to make a lot of noise. I do hope that they don't have to face any of these Ivy League schools to kick it off. But nevertheless, look, this is really interesting. In the last USA Today's Sports Men's College Basketball Coaches Poll, that rolls right off the tongue, the Crimson Tide were ranked number 1. And in the AP Top 25, they were number 2. Mizzou was ranked number 2, and in the AP Top 25, they were ranked number 1. So this is the first number 1 versus number 2 matchup in SEC history. And last Saturday, Alabama lost 94-85, and they were the favorites against Auburn. So right now, Mizzou has the hot hand. I think the conditions will be in their favor. I think Mizzou is in a much better position to win. Do I think it'll be close? Of course I think it'll be close. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I have it as a 4-point difference. I got 85-81 Mizzou beating Alabama tonight. So we definitely will have to check that out. The odds makers out there are predicting Alabama to win, but you know how it goes. So, with all that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening on Roundabout Sports. We here are working on a lot of new projects and a lot of things that really will put you all on the edge of your seats. Every day we're evolving. Every day we're getting better. And thank you all as we get closer and closer to 10,000 followers on our Facebook page. So please go to Interstate 70 Sports Media on Facebook. Also go to Roundabout Sports on Facebook. Also go to X and find myself at jcarpsportsfan1 and the Interstate 70 Sports Media X page. And Roundabout Sports is on Facebook. I can go on and on about what you can subscribe to and whatnot, and where you can find all of our socials. I also want to once again recommend the Blues Fan Forum podcast, the official Blues podcast of Interstate 70 Sports Media. So, with all that being said, we're going to wrap things up here on this week's episode of Roundabout Sports. We always start by putting up the NAMI helpline, and for that you dial 1-800-950-NAMI. That is 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle. And of course, we end the show as always by putting up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And for that, you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, who wants nothing but the best for you. We all struggle a lot. We all go through stresses, through trials, through tribulations, through all kinds of things. And they're always valid. Your feelings valid. Your situations matter. You are important. But I emphasize the fact that what you go through doesn't have to be a road that's traveled alone. You're just a phone call, a text message, an email, an appointment away from what could very well be life for you. And you could also be the listening ears and watch eyes for somebody in need as well. So I want to thank everybody once again for tuning in this week on Roundabout Sports. Once again, I know it was, just over a half-hour episode. Normally we run about an hour. But be sure to catch us next Wednesday night. Until then, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp, and remember, life is a book full of empty pages waiting to be written in. Make your reading